My husband's mother sneered. You'll never be as good as Claire, Evan's first love. I looked her straight in the eye and said, then tell Claire to pay your bills. I'm done funding your lifestyle. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. What money? We never got a single dollar from you. That was the moment something inside me shifted. The second I realized something was very, very wrong. Before we unravel this betrayal together, thank you for being here. If you believe family should mean honesty, not deception, please subscribe. Now let's go back 18 months. To when I still believed marrying into Evan's family would eventually feel like belonging. Back then my mornings started before sunrise. I worked as a financial analyst at Langford Holdings, the kind of firm where people measured worth by decimal points and bonuses. I'd arrive before the security guard finished his coffee, heels clicking through the marble lobby, and ride the elevator to the 19th floor. My corner office overlooked downtown, glass towers catching the first gold light of morning. That view had been my dream for years. A skyline earned through late nights, caffeine, and spreadsheets that never lied. I tracked numbers that told stories of growth, deception, and risk. I could spot a misplaced digit faster than most people spotted lies. Bernie, right? Because the biggest lie of my life wasn't in any spreadsheet. It was at home. Evan worked independently, as he called it. He did business consultations, marketing projects, whatever sounded impressive at dinner parties but never added up to a steady income. I didn't mind. I thought love meant balance, that his creativity and my stability made us a team. Every Saturday we'd drive 40 minutes to his parents' house. Evan would hold my hand during the ride, talk about new restaurants, podcasts, random dreams for the future. But the moment we turned onto Willow Court, his hand would slip away. His shoulders would tense. And by the time we reached the front steps of that small white townhouse, he'd become someone else's son. Robert, his father, always greeted us with warmth. Abigail, you look lovely as always. He'd take the flowers I brought, always peonies, Barbara's favorite, and disappear into the kitchen. Then came her. Barbara. Perfectly curled hair, pearl earrings, that permanent expression of mild disappointment. She'd glance up from the glossy magazine she never read and say, "Oh, it's you. Evan, did you hear about Claire? She just opened her own design studio. Such ambition." Every visit became the Claire show. Claire's charity work. Claire's talent. Claire's natural elegance. Claire's lasagna that apparently had the magical ingredient of love. Meanwhile, my homemade casserole sat cooling on the counter. I smiled politely, every week, every dig. And Evan, my husband, said nothing. Not once did he defend me. Not once did he remind her that Claire had cheated on him with his college roommate. I told myself Barbara just needed time. That someday she'd see me not as the woman who replaced Claire, but as the one who truly cared about her son. Then came the first favor. Subtle, wrapped in guilt and family pride. One Thursday while I was reviewing client portfolios, Evan appeared at my office door. He looked uneasy, the way he did before asking for something. "Mom's been struggling with her medication costs," he said softly. "They're drowning Abby. She's too proud to ask for help." I closed my laptop. "How much do they need?" "Maybe 2,000. Just until Dad's hours pick up again." It sounded reasonable. Temporary. Family helping family. I agreed, and set up automatic transfers from our joint account to Evan's. He said he'd handle it. Said Barbara didn't understand online banking. At the time it felt noble, doing the right thing, easing their burden. But as I'd later learn, that money wasn't paying medical bills at all. And that's where it began. A simple act of kindness that opened the door to 18 months of deception. Before I tell you what I found in Evan's consulting folders, tell me in the comments. Would you have trusted your spouse to handle it too? And where are you watching from tonight? It started small. The kind of things you brush off because love makes you want to believe. A missing bank statement. A phone call Evan took in the garage because of bad reception. Passwords that suddenly changed. At first I thought nothing of it. He said his clients were private, startups, NDAs, things I wouldn't understand. But one night I woke up around 2 a.m. and noticed his side of the bed was empty. A sliver of light glowed under his office door. The faint, rapid clicking of keys. When I stepped into the hallway, the sound stopped. By the time I opened the door, he was scrolling through sports scores, smiling too easily. "Couldn't sleep," he said. "Didn't want to wake you." I wanted to believe him. I really did. Weeks passed. Every month, the transfers continued. $2,000, then $2,300, then $2,500. The reasons changed. Medication, roof repairs, car issues. Each one neatly labeled in my spreadsheet. But Barbara's tone at dinners didn't change. Still cold, still condescending. Still worshipping Claire like a saint. And that's what didn't add up. If we were helping them so much financially, why did nothing in their life seem any better? Why was Robert still working double shifts at the hardware store? Why did Barbara keep sighing about barely getting by? One Sunday it all cracked a little. Robert nearly collapsed while clearing the table. His hands shook, his face pale. Evan rushed to steady him, concern flooding his voice. "Dad, you need to take your medication," I said. Robert shook his head. "Making it last longer. Those pills are expensive." I froze. 2 days earlier I'd sent $2,400 for those exact medications. Evan squeezed my knee under the table, warning me to stay quiet. That was when the first real chill hit my spine. Not from fear, but from the sense that I'd been living in someone else's story. The following week my work felt heavier. Numbers blurred. Every transaction I analyzed reminded me of the ones disappearing from my own account. I started rechecking the transfers, looking for proof of where they went. But the paper statements that used to arrive at our doorstep were gone. Evan said he switched us to paperless billing. How convenient. When I logged in to check, I couldn't. The password didn't work. That night I waited until he was asleep. His laptop sat on the desk, closed, silent. I touched it, then hesitated. Because if I opened it, everything could change. Ignorance still had its comforts. But suspicion? Suspicion keeps you awake. I tried our anniversary date. Denied. His birthday. Denied. His mother's birthday. Denied again. Then, just to test a gut feeling, I typed Claire 2018. The screen unlocked. And that's when I knew. Whatever I was about to find, it wouldn't just break my trust. It would rewrite everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Before we continue, thank you for being here, truly. Stories like this remind us that love without honesty isn't love at all. If you're watching and you've ever ignored your instincts for the sake of peace, you're not alone. Now let's see what I found when I opened those folders. And how deep the betrayal really went. The screen blinked to life. Folders. Dozens of them. Each one named like a harmless project. Client review, household budget, consulting reports. But I've spent years auditing corporate accounts. I know when numbers are trying to hide something. At first, everything looked ordinary. Spreadsheets, PDFs, invoices. Then one file caught my eye. It was labeled Operation Clear Path. I opened it. Rows and columns stretched across the screen. Dates. Dollar amounts. Notes in parentheses. And there, under the column marked source, was my name. Abigail. $2,000. Told Abby it's for mom's injections. $2,500. Said it's for roof repairs. $3,000. Called it medical debt rollover. In the final column, another name appeared beside each entry. Claire. Payments marked as bridge support, rebranding funds, boutique recovery. My throat tightened. The spreadsheet wasn't about his parents at all. It was about her, the ex Barbara worshipped, the ghost at every dinner table. I scrolled further, my pulse hammering in my ears. Notes, detailed conversations. Mom says she'll keep her calm until after the holidays. Claire needs another $1,500. Tell Abby business is slow. Make sure Dad doesn't find out. 18 months of transfers. $42,000. My money. I stared at the numbers until they blurred into one long betrayal. For a while I just sat there, unable to move. Some people cry when they discover infidelity. Some scream. He analyzed. I opened his email next, still logged in. The latest thread was from Barbara. Abigail seems suspicious. Keep her distracted until my birthday. After that, we can reassess the arrangement. The arrangement. Methodical. Like this wasn't family, it was a business plan. Another email. From Claire. Thank you again, Evan. The transfer went through. Tell your trust fund manager I'm forever grateful. Trust fund manager. That's what he told her I was. A faceless funder. I felt sick. The next messages were worse. Barbara coaching him on which excuses worked best. Kyle, his younger brother, thanking him for another generous share. And at the very bottom, a message that made my hands go cold. Once Claire's stable, start detaching from Abigail. Mom and I will help make it smooth. They weren't just taking my money. They were planning my exit. I forwarded everything to my private email. The one Evan didn't know existed. The one I used for online shopping. 23 emails. 14 attachments. Screenshots of every transfer. Then I printed them. Each page sliding out of the printer like a silent witness. By the time Evan's footsteps echoed upstairs, I had a neat folder stacked beside me. Evidence of every lie he'd ever told. When he came down, hair damp, humming like nothing had changed. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my tea. "Morning, beautiful," he said, kissing the top of my head. "Sleep okay?" "Like a baby," I lied, because I wanted him to believe the game was still his to play. The next morning I called someone I hadn't spoken to in months. My college roommate, Lydia. She was now a paralegal for a law firm that handled financial crimes. The kind of woman who'd see this not just as betrayal but as a case. "Lydia," I said, my voice trembling, "I think my husband and his family have been stealing from me." He didn't hesitate. "Bring everything. Don't confront them." "Not yet." Before we moved to that meeting, and how Lydia helped me turn evidence into a plan. If you've ever ignored that gut feeling because you loved someone too much to doubt them, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments. Have you ever trusted someone after you saw the red flags? Now, let's talk about what Lydia found, and how we decided to confront them all at once. Lydia's apartment smelled like coffee and printer ink. The scent of sleepless nights and bad decisions turned into evidence. I spread my folder across her kitchen table. Emails, spreadsheets, screenshots. She read in silence, her brow tightening with every page. When she finally looked up, her tone had shifted. "Abby, this isn't just theft. This is wire fraud." "Wire what?" "When money crosses state lines under false pretenses, it becomes federal. We're talking prison time. Your husband, his mother, his brother, they're all in on it." She tapped the spreadsheet I'd labeled Operation Clear Path. "This," she said, "is a prosecutor's dream. Every lie has a receipt." We spent the next 3 hours turning betrayal into strategy. Lydia made me print duplicates of everything. Color-coded tabs, emails, transfers, notes, timeline. He taught me what to say if questioned. What not to say. How to gather confessions without tipping them off. "Don't confront them privately," she warned. "They'll twist it. Make you emotional, discredit you. If you do this, do it publicly, where witnesses can't be ignored." Barbara's birthday was coming up in 4 days. The entire family would be there. Perfect. I didn't want drama. I wanted truth. And witnesses make truth undeniable. For the next few days I acted normal. Smiled when Evan talked about his clients. Cooked dinner. Answered his texts with heart emojis. But beneath the surface I was preparing for war. I bought a small voice recorder. Charged my phone fully. Labeled every document Lydia had prepared. Including one last addition. A post-nuptial agreement acknowledging the $42,000 debt. "This isn't revenge," Lydia told me as she slipped the folder back into my hands. "It's accountability." I nodded, but part of me didn't believe her. Because the truth is, it was revenge. Quiet, calculated, and cold. Saturday arrived gray and damp. The kind of day when the world feels like it's holding its breath. I dressed with precision. Navy dress, pearl earrings, hair tied back. Evan said I looked classic. Barbara would call it trying too hard. Either way, it didn't matter. We drove in silence, windshield wipers marking time like a metronome. He held my hand at red lights. His thumb tracing the wedding band that suddenly felt like a shackle. When we reached his parents' building, I could hear laughter drifting from the open window. Barbara's laughter, sharp and performative. Evan took a deep breath. "Please," he said quietly, "no tension tonight." "For me." I smiled. "Of course." My voice didn't shake once. Barbara opened the door in a lavender dress and too much perfume. Her face lit up at the sight of her son, then dimmed when she saw me. "Oh, Abigail. You made it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, handing her flowers. The apartment smelled like overcooked beef and air freshener. Kyle sat on the couch, scrolling his phone. Melissa, Evan's sister, was arranging plates. Robert rose to greet me, kind as always. his tired eyes soft with apology for sins he didn't yet know existed. Barbara ushered us to the table, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Evan, did you hear from Claire? She sent me the sweetest birthday message. Even with her new business taking off, she still finds time for family." Family. The word curdled in my chest. Dinner dragged on like a bad play. Barbara told story after story, all starring Claire. Evan nodded politely, pretending not to see my clenched jaw. When dessert arrived, a cheap grocery store cake with purple icing, Barbara made her move. "You know, Abigail," she began, her voice syrupy sweet. "Some people just fit into a family better than others. You try, dear, but you'll never be what Claire was. You'll never make Evan better the way she did." The room went silent. Even Kyle looked up from his phone. Evan froze, his hand tight around his fork. I stood slowly, smoothing my dress. My hands didn't shake. "Then tell Claire to pay all your bills. I'm done funding your lifestyle." Barbara blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "You heard me," I said. "I'm done paying for your medications, your roof repairs, your fake emergencies." Her eyes narrowed. "We never got a single dollar from you." And just like that, it happened. The way. The one that broke the entire charade. Evan's face drained of color. Kyle stopped chewing. Robert stared at his wife in shock. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. "Then maybe we should check together," I said calmly, opening my banking app and scrolling through the list of transfers. January, $2,000 for arthritis injections. February, $2,500 for roof maintenance. March, $3,000 for medication. Each number fell into the silence like stones into deep water. Barbara's lips parted, but no sound came out. The silence that followed could have swallowed the room. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator filled the space. Barbara's face had gone pale beneath her powder. Evan looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. And Robert just stared at me, his jaw trembling, trying to make sense of it all. I scrolled further down on my phone. April, $2,400. Arthritis treatment. May, $2,500. Roof repair. June, $3,000. Robert's medication. I set the phone down on the table. "Would you like me to keep going, Barbara?" I don't understand," she stammered. "We never saw." "Because you weren't the one receiving it," I said. My gaze shifted to Evan. "He was. And he told me every cent was for you." Evan's mouth opened but no words came out. Robert turned to his son. "Evan, did you give your mother's money to Claire?" It wasn't a scream. It was quiet, too quiet. The kind of voice that carries decades of disappointment. Evan's eyes glistened. "Dad, please. It's complicated." "Uncomplicated for me," I said, sliding a folder from my purse. I opened it and spread the documents across Barbara's spotless tablecloth. Emails. Screenshots. Bank statements. Every lie cataloged in neat, professional order. "Operation Clear Path," I said softly. "Does that ring a bell?" Barbara's breath caught. Her eyes flickered to Evan, then to the printed spreadsheet staring back at her like a confession. Melissa whispered, "What's going on?" I ignored her and began to read aloud. Email from Barbara to Evan. Subject line, "Keep her calm. Abigail seems suspicious. Keep her distracted until my birthday. After that, we'll reassess the arrangement." Gasps around the table. Barbara shot up from her chair. "You had no right to." "I had every right," I cut her off. "You used my money to bankroll your son's ex-lover." I flipped to the next page. Email from Evan to Claire. "Don't worry, my trust fund can cover it. Abigail doesn't know." I looked up, meeting Evan's eyes. "Trust fund? You mean me, right? I'm the trust fund." His lips trembled. I didn't want you to think less of me." "I already do." Kyle slammed his beer bottle down. "This is insane. I didn't know anything." "Oh, didn't you?" I asked, pulling another sheet from the folder. Email from Evan to Kyle. "Mom says you need $8,000. Abigail thinks it's for Dad's medication. Act accordingly if she asks." Kyle's eyes darted to his mother. "You said it was family money." Barbara's composure finally cracked. She stood, trembling with fury. "Everything I did for my family. For Evan. Claire was supposed to be part of our future. You were temporary, Abigail, just a bridge. There was the truth. Raw, ugly, and exactly what I'd known deep down. You stole my money to build your fantasy, I said, my voice low, steady. But here's what's going to happen now. I pulled out 3 documents Lydia had prepared. Thick, stamped, legally binding. Evan, I said, sliding the first one toward him. This is a post-nuptial agreement acknowledging the $42,000 debt. You'll repay it through your retirement account and future earnings. If you refuse, it goes federal. Barbara's eyes widened. Federal? Yes, I said calmly, turning to her. Wire fraud. Money transferred across state lines under false pretenses. That's a 5-year minimum sentence. You, Kyle, and your son are all co-conspirators. Kyle's hands began to shake. I didn't know it was. You did, I interrupted. You accepted the money. You participated. You joked about it in the emails. Barbara's face twisted into something feral. You're bluffing. No court would take this case. I leaned forward. My paralegal friend already built the file. If I call her tonight, the FBI will have every document by morning. I placed my phone on the table, the screen glowing with Lydia's name ready to dial. Or, I said softly, you can all sign these papers, pay me back, and this stays civil. Evans stared at the documents. His hand shook as he picked up the pen. This will ruin us, he whispered. It's already ruined, I said. You're just finally reading the receipts. He signed. Barbara followed, tears of rage glinting in her eyes. Kyle scribbled his name last, his signature shaky and wet with sweat. Robert reached for my hand. I didn't know, Abigail. I swear to you I didn't know. I believe you, I said softly. You were their cover story too. When it was done, I stacked the papers neatly back into my folder. The same folder I'd walked in with, but now heavier, not with proof but with closure. I turned toward Barbara, whose birthday cake still sat untouched between us, frosting melting under the heat of humiliation. Family doesn't steal from family, I said quietly. Happy birthday, Barbara. Then I walked out, leaving behind the smell of candle wax, overcooked beef, and a family empire crumbling under its own lies. Before we continue to what happened after that night, the calls, the fallout, the revenge that didn't end at that dinner table, make sure you're subscribed, because what comes next is where freedom begins. Tell me in the comments, would you have walked away, or called the FBI right there at the table? They say silence after a storm is peaceful. That's a lie. The silence that followed Barbara's birthday dinner was electric. The kind that hums in your bones, like thunder waiting to return. The next morning my phone exploded with messages. Evan, Barbara, even Kyle. Apologies. Please. Threats wrapped in guilt. I didn't answer a single one. Instead I called Lydia. They signed everything, I said. Her voice sharpened. Perfect. Then today we file the divorce. By noon the papers were at the courthouse. By sunset my marriage was legally dying. Quietly, efficiently. The way it should have died long ago. Evan came home that night anyway. Used his key like nothing had changed. He stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his hair, eyes swollen from crying. Abby, please. We can fix this. I looked at him. This man I'd once called my partner. The same man who used my love as capital. Fix what? I asked. The fraud. The lies. Or the fact that you turned me into your family's item. He swallowed hard. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, I said, holding up the signed postnuptial agreement. You already confessed in writing. There's nothing left to fix. He stepped forward, voice breaking. I loved you. I shook my head. You loved access. There's a difference. And then I closed the door. This time he didn't try to stop it with his hand. The weeks that followed were strange. Like living in a house that was finally breathing again. I slept through the night. I made coffee just for one. And I started to feel something I hadn't in months. Peace. Barbara tried calling. At first to apologize. Then to threaten. Then to beg. Family doesn't do this to family, she said in one voicemail. I saved it. Labeled it Exhibit Irony. Robert sent a letter instead. Handwritten. Careful. Honest. Abigail, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You deserved better from all of us. I'm getting help for my health and staying away from their drama. I hope you find peace. I cried reading that one. Not out of sadness but relief. because not everyone in that house was rotten. A month later, the first repayment hit my account. $30,000 from Evan's retirement fund. Another $12,000 to come in monthly installments. Every payment a reminder that I wasn't powerless. And then something unexpected happened. Lydia called me and said, "You know, you could help others with this." Others. Abby, you built a full forensic case on your own. There are women out there right now getting drained dry by people they love, and they don't even know it. You could teach them what to look for. Her words stayed with me. That night I started a small online group called Ledgerlight, a community for women learning to track their finances, document everything, and never again let love blind them to theft. At first there were only 5 members. By the end of the month, 50. By the end of the year, thousands. They shared screenshots, red flags, patterns. And every time someone wrote, "You saved me," I felt like I was finally reclaiming what that family tried to take. My confidence. Then came the message I didn't expect. From Claire. She wrote, "Abigail, I had no idea where that money came from. Evan told me it was inheritance. I'm disgusted. I'm returning what I can. And if you ever need me to testify, I will." I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I forgave her, but because for the first time, I didn't need to hate her. She was a pawn in their plan too. And I'd already won the game. 1 year later I stood in my new apartment. Smaller, brighter, peaceful. No whispers of deceit. No ghosts of dinners where I was never enough. On the wall hung a framed quote Lydia gave me. "Documentation beats gaslighting every time." I smiled. Barbara's calls had stopped. Evan had moved back in with her. Poetic, really. 2 liars trapped in the house they built out of greed. Meanwhile, I had something far greater. My independence. My voice. My story. And every time someone new joined Ledgerlight, I thought of that night at the dinner table. The cake, the silence, the sound of pens signing confessions. That wasn't just revenge. That was rebirth. A full year had passed since Barbara's birthday dinner. Since I laid their lies across her table like evidence in a courtroom. Funny thing about time. It doesn't heal everything, but it sure puts distance between the person you were and the one who finally learned to stand alone. I still remember that night vividly. The purple frosting melting under the heat of guilt. Evan's shaking hands. Barbara's silence. The first silence she'd ever given me. It used to haunt me. Now it felt like closure. I'd built something real from their ashes. Ledgerlight had grown into a network of nearly 10,000 women. Each one learning to track her worth, protect her accounts, and most importantly, believe her instincts. Our weekly virtual meetings became sacred spaces. Stories of women who once whispered, "I think something's off," now saying, "I have proof." Every testimony was a mirror of mine. Different names, same patterns. Money gone missing, gaslighting disguised as love. I listened, advised, taught. And every story healed me a little more. One evening after one of those sessions, I found an envelope in my mailbox. Handwritten. No return address. But I knew that careful handwriting anywhere. Robert. Inside was a simple note and a folded photograph. "Dear Abigail, I wanted you to know that I've left Barbara for good. I live with my brother now in New Jersey. My health is better. The doctors say the treatment is finally working. I'll never forgive myself for not seeing the truth sooner. But thank you for opening my eyes. Even if it took losing everything to understand. You deserved honesty. I wish you peace always. Robert." The photo was of him sitting in a garden, smiling, genuinely smiling. There was no trace of Barbara beside him. Just sunlight and freedom. For the first time I pinned a memory from that family on my fridge without bitterness. A reminder that even in ruins, some people choose redemption. Evan never reached out again. Lydia said he eventually took a job under a new name, trying to rebuild a reputation too public to escape. Barbara's health declined. Karma, or maybe just the cost of living off resentment for too long. Either way, I didn't need updates. Because while they were shrinking in their lies, I was expanding in truth. One Sunday morning I stood on my balcony, coffee in hand, watching the city pulse beneath me. The same skyline I used to see from my old office. Only this time it wasn't a measure of success. It was a measure of peace. For so long I thought revenge meant destruction. That justice required fire. But I learned that real revenge isn't burning what hurt you. is building something they can never touch. Freedom, dignity, and a future that doesn't include them. A woman from Brazil joined Ledgerlight that week. She messaged me privately saying, "Abigail, I was you once, but your story gave me courage. I left before it was too late." I read it twice, smiling. That was the real ending. Not the documents, not the signatures, not the courtroom. It was this. One woman saving another. A ripple of truth spreading quietly, powerfully. So if you're listening right now, and you're still making excuses for someone's lies, if you're still carrying the weight of someone else's comfort, let my story remind you of this. The moment you decide to stop funding other people's peace, you begin to build your own. Thank you for being here. Truly.